All right,
Great.
I'm going to call to
Oh,
order
geez, there she goes.
That's all I need. Oh, I always have one.
Thursday, Wednesday, April 25th, 2018, Northborough-Southborough Regional School Committee open meeting to session. Welcome, everyone. It is April 25th, and we are all still wearing sweaters and fleeces, and welcome to spring. Okay, action, special recognition.
Well, generally this time of year, we take pause to say thank you to those members who are moving on from having joyful moments on Wednesday. And this year, I believe it's just, at this point, Hallie, right? Barak will be moving on.
Yeah.
Came on to join our committee, happily so, at a point where we were looking to have some new input from Northborough, and definitely appreciated the fact that you joined us for the last 3 or 4 months and really have, I think, contributed to the conversations.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks
We
for having
appreciate
me.
that. May this not be the end of your school committee career.
Yeah, fingers crossed. May 8th.
That's right. That it?
Okay.
Okay,
Tonight.
then action on the minutes. Do I hear any motions? Lynn?
I move that we accept the minutes of the special open meeting of March 14th, 2018.
Second?
You want me to do all of them?
Sure.
Second?
Second.
I move that we, whatever. I move that we accept the action on the minutes of the open meeting of March 21st, 2018, and accept the subcommittee meeting minutes of the Capital Planning Committee of November 16th, 2017, the Policy Development Subcommittee of January 11th, 2018, and the Operational Budget Subcommittee meeting of February 15th, 2018.
Second.
Moved by Lynn, seconded by Dan for all of them. Any questions, input, suggestions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Okay, educational policy. Approval of the first robotic team's overnight field trip.
They are on their field trip as we speak. Sometimes the timing just has that be the way that we address this. They did submit paperwork, but it did not meet the timeline of our last meeting. And I do know that this is something the committee always is quite excited about, having them come and present, and I'm sure they will do so upon their return and will be with us at our May meeting. And I know we wish them all the best. And again, the first robotics team is on their way to national competition, which is very exciting. So the advisor apologized profusely. I did reach out to the regional chair and let her know that this was a trip that needed to take place. And I guess last year they were about 5 months early, so we're even on the field trip time.
Averaged out.
My suggestion to him was, send it our way in September, just on the anticipation of that you'll be going on the trip, and provide the details later. So they're on their way, and extend great appreciation to the school committee for your consideration on this one. And then we have a field trip for the art department, all state in Dartmouth, Mass. And again, something that we look forward to hearing about and approving each and every year. And the field trip application is enclosed, so we would need a vote to approve both.
Your motion.
I move that we approve the first robotics team's overnight field trip to the 2018 First Championship in Detroit.
Second.
And approval, I didn't know you wanted to do them both.
Keep going.
Approval of the art department's overnight field trip to the All-State in Dartmouth, Mass, June 8th, 2018.
Second.
8th to 9th, 2018.
Moved by Lynn, seconded by Dan on both of them. Any questions? Comments? All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. On to new business. Technology update.
Well, I think this is the first presentation by Julie Doyle in her new role as District Instructional Technology Leader. Someone we're very familiar with. Julie's been presenting to the school committee as a technology instructional leader here at the high school for many years. And this evening she's presenting her overview of where we're headed with technology at Algonquin on a district level. So Julie, I'm happy to have you here.
It's warming up. Julie.
I think I just turned it on.
Yeah, it's flashing.
Okay. So many things that I'm holding up here. Great. All right, so I wanted to take some time tonight to talk about my new role as the Director of Instructional Technology and Digital Learning. First, I want to spend a little time talking about my background. For those of you who don't know me, I've lived in Northborough since 1999. I am the proud parent of 3 Algonquin graduates. I have been an educator for over 20 years. Many of those years spent teaching high school math, some at a private high school, but most here at Algonquin. For the last 4 years, I have been Algonquin's instructional technology teacher. I am really looking forward to this new position and to be able to share my passion for educational technology with all the schools in the district. So I'm leaving my job as instructional technology teacher here at Algonquin in the very capable hands of Brian Calnan. Brian Calnan has been a math teacher here for 5 years. The math department and his students were sad to see him leave that position, but happy to know that he will be staying at Algonquin and still in the role of helping students and teachers. Brian has always used technology innovatively to challenge and engage his students in class, in his math classes. He, for the last couple years, has been one of our digital literacy leaders, or DLL as we call them. The DLL is a school-based leadership position in the area of technology and digital literacy. So Brian, like all the other DLLs, has modeled effective integration of technology and then shared those practices with his colleagues. So based on Brian's classroom experience, his easygoing, approachable personality, and his expertise with technology, he was the perfect choice for the job. In my new job, my focus will be to provide the resources and training necessary for teachers to feel comfortable integrating technology into their classroom. I will work very closely with the district technology team as well as the district technology managers, Andy Mariotti and TJ Karen, to ensure that infrastructure and hardware support our learning initiatives. Technology can never replace good teaching. It can facilitate the learning process, but it can never replace the role of a teacher. That being said, teachers need to learn how to integrate technology seamless into the curriculum to transform the learning. Technology should enhance the learning, and if used correctly, it can empower our students to be self-directed learners, to be more creative, and to be more connected. Over the last few months, I've begun to learn about all the various aspects of this new job. I've had the opportunity to meet with all the building principals, including Sarah, from all the 10 different schools, and to talk about current and future educational technology goals. As you heard earlier, most of my professional experience has been at the high school level, so I know I have a lot to learn about K through 8 curriculum and technology, but I really feel as though my high school experience will be really helpful. As a high school educator, I was able to observe how prepared the entering students were at the high school level, and also able to observe ways in which they were not prepared. This is one of the many reasons why it's important to provide collaboration time for teachers across school levels to help smooth the transition from grade to grade, and also to help vertically and horizontally align curriculum and instruction. So our decision to use Canvas as our learning management system in grades 7 through 12 in the district is a good example of this collaboration across school levels. Canvas is the new learning management system that we adopted at the high school this year, and
I don't know if you guys remember, but I was here in October presenting to this committee all about Canvas. Algonquin has really embraced the use of Canvas this year. It has made teaching and learning easier by putting all the digital tools that teachers use in one easy place. It has made communication and collaboration a lot easier. It's helped students to get more organized and to get faster and more valuable feedback. So we've had a really successful year at Algonquin using Canvas, but we look forward to learning more and using more of the advanced features of Canvas in the future. Because of the success, we are going to be expanding the use of Canvas as we planned to both Trottier and Milliken. And our instructional techs over at Trottier and Milliken, both Mike Grosha and Sandy Scordato, are doing a fabulous job introducing Canvas and helping to train the teachers. So by using Canvas at the middle school, we're helping the students in grades 6 through 8 to stay up to date and to be more successful with all their classes. We're helping to prepare them for high school. And we're also providing an online space for curriculum sharing and collaboration between middle and high school teachers. So Canvas is just one example of the many uses of embedded educational technology. These pictures highlight a few other examples. So as you can see in a couple of the photos, students enjoy using green screen technology to create video projects. Another photo shows DJs from our online streaming radio station. WARHS has been a great way for students to get some broadcasting experience, but also a great way to improve their literacy skills as they research show topics and write scripts. We have other students who are learning about marketing and advertising as they reach out to community members to find sponsors for the station. The other photos are of our student tech support team, better known as SWAT. And in one of the photos, they're working together. In another photo, they are helping students at Proctor learn coding. In an effort to make technology integration more seamless, we are in the process of planning for a BYOD program at Algonquin. BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Device, and it makes sense for many reasons. It enables students to use the device that they're familiar with, so it increases productivity. With BYOD, students can collaborate on projects easy. It provides the opportunity for personalized and differentiated learning so that all students can excel and learn at their own pace. We currently have teachers at Algonquin who are piloting BYOD with their students, and there are plans in place to improve the infrastructure at Algonquin to support a BYOD environment. So as you can see, there's a lot of exciting tech integration going on here at Algonquin. Instructional technology really encompasses so much. What I talked about earlier and this diagram are just a few of the many focus areas. Teachers and tech coaches, though, always need to be mindful of the importance of embedding it into pre-existing curriculum to transform the learning. In order for our students to be successful, we want them to effectively read, write, think, solve problems, analyze. We want to use technology to help them master those essential cognitive skills. We also want educators to teach kids to safely and responsibly engage with technology so they can acquire those 21st century skills they need to succeed in college, career, and life. Does anyone have any questions?
I just have a quick question. How are you able to monitor what the kids are on, if they're on appropriate or inappropriate websites with the BYOD?
That is an excellent question. So just in the last week, we have acquired an appliance, and we are piloting this online service. It's called NetRef. And NetRef, what it does is it allows the teachers to have on their computer screen a teacher panel, and every kid logs in to this service, and it shows every kid's computer screen and what websites they're visiting. Or it enables the teacher to either say, you can visit every site but these 3 sites, or it allows the teacher to say, you can only visit these 4 sites. So it's really a great, useful tool. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions?
Doesn't look like it.
All right.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sounds like a lot of exciting things going on, and we look forward to future updates.
Great, thanks.
Probably for the next update, you won't even have to be here. You'll just be
Yeah.
a hologram.
Sometimes I wish I could go to school again.
Okay, next is the draft of the 2018-19 student handbook.
So in front of you is a draft, and it's important to say draft copy of representation of a lot of work that's been taking place at the high school. And Michelle Contadonato, assistant principal, and Dr. Walsh will be able to go into far more detail. I do want to share with the committee that this is about the earliest we've brought this forward before. The committee to review, and it's all red, but this is actually black. We just had that conversation on the cover. It's not, there's no change to the cover. But there's a lot of different elements to this handbook, and again, this has been sent off to legal counsel. We thought that it was important to get this in front of our committee members this evening. There's no action to be taken. It's just to review, to provide an overview. Next month, we will have the legal counsel's edits for discussion, and what this does do is give us plenty of time to be thoughtful about the document before we seek approval in June for this. So there's lots of time for discussions. And with that, I'm going to turn that over to the experts.
So before Michelle starts, because I know I just briefly cut her off, I just want to commend her work and how she set up the group to do this. She was very collaborative. She had students of different grade levels, teachers of different content areas, and really pushed the collaborative aspect that I know she's going to speak of. But that in itself took a lot of work, and then leading the work every day. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Good evening. As the superintendent stated, what you have before you is the draft 2018-2019 student handbook for your review and consideration. This submission is the result of the diligence and dedication of the student handbook committee that was comprised of faculty, parents, and student representatives. The committee worked tirelessly from October through early February with not only bi-monthly meetings, but also a lot of emails, phone conversations, and Google Docs in between. Each committee meeting was filled with different points of view and opinions and in-depth conversations by all members. The process we used resulted in a comprehensive review of the handbook. I'd like to recognize the members of the committee, including faculty members Amanda Sensei from Mathematics and Patricia Riley from Applied Arts and Technology, parents Pam San Clemente and Kathy Mashushian, and we had 4 students, senior Rowan Moreland, juniors Rihanna Mukari and Nellie Zhang, and sophomore Joseph Green. I'd like to extend my gratitude to each and every member of them for their participation and input in this long and tedious process.
Could you explain the markings that are contained?
The markings,
There's red and green.
yes,
and
there
blue.
seems to be different colors. I believe that is because we edited it at different times. Just know that if it's underlined, it's new, it's an add-on, and if it's crossed out, it was the previous version, and it's now deleted and replaced with something else, probably. So the colors don't mean too much.
Is there anything you particularly want to draw our attention to? And one other question that comes up frequently is this only available online, or will it only be available online, or hard copies are they available?
Yes. Just as we started this year, the handbook will only be available online. You have the ability to print off the copy if you want to download and print it. But with technology the way it is, and we felt it was better online.
Parents who made a request
Yes.
for a printed copy, we made sure to supply the student with it, but I think there was only 2.
Yes.
So.
And anything to focus on? No, in my opinion, I mean, we touched on every area, whether we changed it or edited it or not. So it's difficult to pick one certain. I don't think there were any major changes that we made to it. There were, it was funny, when we started going through, it was actually the students that pointed out in this year's version, sometimes the section started with a viewpoint, for example, on drugs and alcohol, a statement saying,
we know they're prevalent in society, but we really encourage you not to use them and not to get involved in them. And the students said, you know what, we all know this, just take it out and put what the policy is. They wanted to be succinct, so it was what they wanted to do, so we ended up doing that.
And so that's why you see a couple paragraphs where there's quite
Yes.
a bit of strike through.
Yes.
It was the student saying, just
Yes.
get to the point, you guys. I'm like,
Right,
okay.
right. And it was great how, going through the discussions, if we picked up, when we were talking about any particular topic and the students had their viewpoints, when the faculty members or the parents gave their views, they were like, wow, we didn't really see it that way, but now we see why you want it that way. And it was a great discussion on how do we go between the two.
So the, next month, we'll see more edits by legal, and then we are hoping to approve it from June. And this is basically a big policy, so we're approving it just like we approve all the other policies in our policy manual. But this one, people may actually read.
So when legal makes their edits, is there some way that we can differentiate that this was a legal edit versus the other edit?
So council will provide it to us in an edited process, similar format, and we'll just incorporate that into the copy that you have now. So we'll be able to differentiate for you the changes that council has made. And generally, it's really to the mandated policies that are
Right.
required, student record law, the varying degrees of disciplinary language that are contained in the policy, probably the language around Title IX and those kinds of things. Those are the changes that usually occur. And we'll make sure that those are referenced, maybe in orange or.
No, not orange, too close.
We have to put it in red and green.
We'll have it purpled up.
Even if it's just like,
Yeah.
a summary of any things that they found that need to be changed.
So he has this entire document, and he is going through a similar process, redlining it, and if I
Yep.
get to him in time, which I think I can ask him to put it in a different color, and he's very accommodating. So I will reach out to Attorney McAvoy and suggest that when he provides his edits to this document, he chooses a different color other than red. And that way, when we get it back from him, it's just a photocopy, and we'll be able to provide that. Purple, I think was the request.
So,
By the time we're done, it should be black, because that'll be the only color left that we haven't used for long yet. So we'll have him do that then.
So I just actually had a question, because I was just perusing through it, and just kind of struck out at me. I noticed, there was a section having to do, mentioning discipline, and it changed from always using consequence as a term to disciplinary action.
Disciplinary action.
So I was wondering,
That was the,
logic.
request of the students. They wanted, we're trying to get similar formatting, similar terms throughout, and what they wanted, that was the one thing I remember too. They said, no, it's not a consequence, it's a disciplinary action, let's use this throughout. And I went, okay, I'll make that suggestion. And that's what we did.
I just thought it was kind of interesting, because growing up as raising children, the big push was to use terms such as consequences
Yes.
instead of punishment or whatever. Even though the kids knew that going in timeout is a punishment.
Say it what it is.
Yeah. So I was wondering, I was kind of curious where
Yes.
that came from. It's interesting that it came from the students.
It did come from the students.
Okay, well, it looks like you guys are going to have, you're all going to have plenty, ample time to review it and read it and revisit it. So on to the next, review of town meetings.
Well, I can take the students' lead. Both budgets passed unanimously, or the budget passed unanimously in both communities. Northborough's town meeting was long. I think we finished at about 5 minutes of 1 Tuesday morning, but it was a very successful town meeting, and we had several articles on the warrant list. And as I said, our budget in Northborough, we do a presentation of the budget, a formal presentation. And a few good questions were asked, but in the end, unanimous approval. And also the warrant article number 14 was our request to provide the opportunity for the regional school committee to establish a stabilization fund, and it passed unanimously in Northborough. So that means that next year, at town meeting, we'll probably be moving this forward at Southborough. It's great that we have this start to pursuing that establishment of the fund, and I think it's a great step forward, and we'll continue our good work. So we thank both Southborough for approving our budget and for allowing us to bring that forward at town meeting. Again, positive step, and also to the community of Northborough for approving our budget as well. And we're ready to start setting up FY19 expenditures in our system. So closing out one and starting up the other. So again, thank you to everyone who was a part of that. Our administrative team very much engaged in the process with almost a brand-new administrative team. Michelle's the veteran over there. We really did appreciate their work on all of the budget process this year. And again, thank you to the regional committee for the support throughout the process. And to our communities who still put first and foremost public education in our communities.
I think this is the first time that Southborough didn't have a hold on any budget.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. I think it's really a testament to the incredible work that's done, by Ms. Johnson, by the budget subcommittee, by this board, by your team. I mean, it is outstanding, and everyone had it well in advance. So if anyone did have questions, the opportunity was clearly there at town meeting to bring it up, and hearing none was an amazing vote of confidence in what this what this district is doing budget wise. So it was great. Money well spent.
And speaking of that, we had a great presentation by Julie Doyle, and as we remember, the budget that we presented that was supported moves our technology forward with an increase in that line item to support networking and telecommunications infrastructure upgrades, which will support a lot of what she presented this evening. So thank you, Mr. Kalenda, much appreciated.
Okay. Any other additions, comments? Okay, then moving along, we are going to legislative update. I believe Mr. Desmond is our legislative liaison.
Suppose I am.
And it's been busy.
It's been a little busy, yeah. So we had a good meeting with Carolyn Dykema, who represents Southborough, as well as Holliston and Orpington, I think part of Westborough, back in late March. So we had representatives, Kathleen and I were both there, along with Christine Johnson and school committee members from the other three towns. And it was a good discussion, but it kind of quickly delved into areas that were beyond her area of expertise. So she was good enough to suggest setting up a meeting with Alice Peisch, who's from Wellesley, and she's the chair of the Joint Committee on Education. So she's kind of perfect. So we did that a couple weeks later, and on April 10th, Greg was there, and Kathleen and I again, and again, members, school committee members from the other towns, and discussed a number of things. First was circuit breaker. We all were kind of surprised that it was underfunded this year, and we learned that it really wasn't that they voted to reduce the funding. It was just that the way they do it is on a 5-year rolling average, and it usually comes out pretty close. And this year it just didn't. The costs were just much higher than the average, so that's why percentage-wise it was so low. So they've been working since to get more money back in there, and I think she said now they're at about 72%, so making progress there. Greg made a good point that what we really need is predictability in the budget process, and she agreed with that. I'm just trying to point it out that this year was an aberration. Other topics included sped transportation and regional transportation reimbursement, and a lot of discussion there. I can't say that there were any real solutions. She was of a mind that the transportation problem extends way beyond just regional, and wants to get together a task force to look at transportation costs statewide. She says, why should a town be penalized, because they're not a regional school committee? So, fair point, I suppose. She also mentioned that she thinks we need more competition among the bus companies.
Mm-hmm. And we'll need more bus companies.
And we need more bus companies.
We need more drivers.
Yeah.
Greg also started a good discussion around ways to give districts flexibility on differentiated education, innovative things to get away from the 990 hours requirement. And Price was receptive to that idea, and she made the point that competency, not seat time, should dictate how students spend their time and what schools provide. So she was interested in us providing specifics on, things we have in mind so that, she can kind of go to bat for us to allow district to do, innovative things. So that was encouraging. There was also some good conversation on how to deal with more advanced kids. She mentioned this early college high school program where high school teachers are trained to teach college level courses, and the kids graduate. Well, I guess the goal is the kids graduate with a high school degree as well as an associate's degree. So interesting. There was some school start time discussion, of course. She said the state has no plans to mandate anything, which was good to hear. And probably the most sobering thing was revenue discussion. She, all of this comes down to money, and they'd love to give schools whatever we want, I suppose, but it's all kinds of things. Whenever the economy starts picking up and things are looking better, people come out of the woodwork asking for money. So we're competing with all of them, and right now there's two issues that are threatening revenue. There's going to be a question on the ballot in November to reduce the state sales tax from 6.25% down to 5%. And there's supposed to be a question about the millionaire's tax, which would raise tax on people with more than $1 million a year in income, and all the money would be targeted at infrastructure and education. But it's being threatened in a lawsuit over the wording of the question or something, so it's unclear whether that's even going to be on the ballot. She said if one of those passes but not the other, it basically is a wash. So unless they both pass, it really doesn't help. So
If they both pass, it's catastrophic.
if they both pass,
If they
right.
both,
Well, if the sales tax passes and the millionaire's tax isn't on the ballot, then
Right.
that's a problem. So, whatever, I asked her, what could we be doing there to just get people aware that, nobody likes to pay taxes, but we need the money. Yeah. Again, no real good answers. I think it's, incumbent on everyone to just try to make the case as well as you can. So I think that was the highlights from my perspective. I don't know if Christine or Greg or Kathleen, you want to add anything?
so the only other thing that I think I talked a little bit more with Carolyn about was something that we all of us at the table were finding an advantage of having this discussion with peer towns who are very similar to us, but also have, some differences. And that conversation is very valuable because, in some ways, the town next door may be having issues that we don't even think about now, but they may be on the horizon for us, and vice versa. So, and this regional thing versus not regional thing is just a really great conversation to have. And so what we found was that our legislators have, I think they called it a Metro West caucus. So amongst themselves, they sort of share information from, because they're all in the same basic geographic location. And so, we as school committee members said that would be great if we could do that, because the only opportunity we really have to share with other school committee members is the MASC conference or Day on the Hill, both hugely massive events. There's no real time in either one of them to just sit down with people, targeted people, from targeted school committees. And so anyway, so hopefully that will, of course, everything takes 7 years, but hopefully that process will start, and we will start having, I don't know if it'll be quarterly or if it'll be yearly or whatever it is, but whatever it is, more conversation just about the issues in general is better than none. So hopefully that'll start moving ahead.
I know there's a couple of things I wanted to say, but I know as far as like the school committee, like there's district groupings, but we're being a regional district, we would be grouped with other regional districts who wouldn't necessarily be similar to us because they could be way out in Western Mass somewhere or in more likely out there as opposed to having similarities with us. But there are other districts that are geographically, all the other districts are geographic, and we're just like regions, so we don't have that opportunity to get together with other school committee on a smaller, because even at the MASC, I went to one of those district things, and it was just the region
Right.
but
And it's
other
massive.
regions. And it's, I mean, it was in like a classroom thing.
No, I'm saying
but-
the region, the division
Oh, yeah,
is
the
massive.
region, the division is
Yeah,
massive.
the attendees probably weren't massive.
All right,
But
yeah.
the actual division that
That we're
in
part
MASC
of, but I
is
think
massive,
the
yeah.
other ones might be a little more closer geographically, so similar towns. The other thing you mentioned about the regional transportation and how is that different. I do know that the reason, at least they give regional transportation is because of, especially, the districts, the transportation costs would be considered to be more expensive than a regular district, because some of these districts are like Wachusett is huge mileage-wise. And so the reason why regions had extra reimbursement, because the cost of reimbursement theoretically is in the foundation budget, but we know how far behind that is. So there's probably it's underfunded in the foundation budget, so that's how it affects everyone else, and our K-8s are part of that. So there definitely can be more work on that. And the other thing I noticed in what we passed out was something to have a financial literacy curriculum, was it a proposal? And I just wanted clarification. I'm pretty sure my kids, when they went through and took the economics class, that they had a component of that. It wasn't like a full semester. I know we do have a separate financial literacy class, which is in much elective, but the economics had a component, I think, am I correct there? I just was wondering if we'd have to change, how much we would have to change if we had to do that. I mean, it seems like we might already be all set with that, depending on what the requirement would be.
So it's depending on what the requirement would be, and our history department is already being super collaborative with our applied arts, because not all schools have applied arts, so they're already figuring out how to integrate any of the changes.
Okay, yeah, just curious about that.
Well, the nice thing about this particular, grouping is that it would, aside from the MASC, it would mirror what the legislators seem to, they themselves have grouped. So that would lend itself to even better conversations, because then, Carolyn could call together a meeting, with other legislators. So I think that in some ways this might be duplicating effort. In some ways, I don't think it's actually really happening through MASC. So this would just be nice to have us have an organization that mirrors what the legislators are doing.
Yeah.
So we also had the opportunity to attend another legislative breakfast that was actually sponsored by MARS, the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools. And I have found this organization to not always, to always lobby on behalf of the regional school interests, but also to be very proactive in terms of changes that are being proposed in the budget process. So they actually had similar concerns, but also a few that are very much unique to our configuration as a regional school district. And that includes things like setting the minimum local contribution. If there's anything that seems to impact our towns through the budgeting process, it's the unknown amount that each town is assessed as is required to pay on the appropriated budget requests. And that oftentimes is not known as early as it should be, which quite frankly is when we begin our budget conversations. In fact, this year, it was quite impactful for one of our towns. And that was a significant change in minimum local contribution, which is the required amount that a district is required to pay. And in fact, when we spend days trying to determine how MLC is calculated, we found out that it is somewhat mystical and magical, as much as Chapter 70 funding formula, that it's not necessarily unique to student enrollment, but in fact, the wealth factor in the community, which is running 2 years late. So they're using 2-year-old data to calculate that. And so lots of conversation in the budgeting process with the towns, that collaborative piece that's so necessary in order for our budgets to be approved. with respect to MLC. And next year, given some of the changes that are going to happen in our enrollment, as we see, as of today, looking forward to October, having that information as soon as possible is critical for our towns to effectively budget and support our regional budget. And I can't remember that being such a prominent conversation, and trying to get the legislative branch to come up with that number early and publish it and stay with it. So that is something that they're talking about. Years and years have had conversation about just the timing of the Chapter 70 information so that we have really solid numbers. This year, the budget numbers came out relatively early, but we don't know if we're going to be revoting our assessments as we have the last 2 years in August, because the governor has changed the numbers. Hopefully they will change upwards, but we're not sure in terms of per pupil Chapter 70 reimbursement. Again, they're always lobbying for increases in regional transportation, and there is some hope that we might see a slight increase. But even they are realistic and say, in every conversation, it will never hit the 100% that we were told that it would when we regionalized. So they're, very proactive in some of their conversations. Again, for us as a regional district, reimbursement for homeless transportation is a concern. It's a concern for our member towns. It's not necessarily a big issue here. Non-member vocational transportation can be very costly in any given year, and those numbers fluctuate from time to time on the operational budget. To continue to hold districts harmless from any decrease in enrollment, so that our Chapter 70 funding stays the same. And, then again, in your packet is a different but equally important packet of information that they've put forward, different aspects of the budgeting process, circuit breaker, of course, being part of that, moving forward. An act to allow districts to create regional stabilization funds is also moving forward in a different way than we proposed, which was a capital stabilization fund. And so it's good to know that these organizations are out there working on our behalf. And to Lynn, to your point, there are some like districts that are regional, Concord, Carlisle, Acton, Boxborough, that we, again, could partner with in terms of conversations. When we get together, it's the regional schools across the Commonwealth. So it's a very different perspective, yet some of our very close neighbors, Concord, Carlisle, Lincoln, Sudbury, Acton, Boxborough, are facing the same discussions and concerns that we are having. So having the ability for us to interact with those school committee members would also be something that we would want to pursue, and certainly can move forward to the Mars organization. I'm still on the board. That's one certainly proposal we could make. What can you do to get our school committee members together so they can talk about regional issues as well? And Carolyn Dykema was at that breakfast too. So
She's everywhere.
She's everywhere, and she was speaking on behalf of our district as well at that breakfast. Oh, I did want to mention, I just sent out an email to all the regional school committee members. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see. The Mass Budget and Policy sends to the school superintendents a very timely report. It was 45 pages long, so I thought maybe I'll just send out the link online. And you can click on that link and you can see the process of the debates on each of the articles contained in that 44 pages, including much of what we had talked about. It's very interesting. It's a very detailed spreadsheet that defines every point of discussion that they're taking up, that it reflects concerns that we might have tied to our educational budget. And it's supposed to be time sensitive, so we know where and what is being discussed along the way. So I
So
clicked
that
on it.
link will be.
It's live.
It's live, so it's updated. So what I see today probably won't be what I see tomorrow, because there'll be something will probably.
Something will change.
Okay.
It's probably going to be in red, but I'm not sure what will change in the conversation, but you'll see that as we go through it.
And it's every discussion, it's not just education. So
44 pages.
It also allows you to sort so that you can just get the education, which is excellent.
It's the first time we've been provided with that, and it's a great tool.
I was just thinking, because we mentioned different meetings with Carolyn, but you also have two representatives representing Northborough, I believe. So I was wondering if, because it's not Metro West, because if they're gathering together, we may not even have all our representatives in that group.
I don't know if they're they're considered Metro West for their group,
Right,
you know what I'm
it's
saying? Yeah.
inside, because a lot of times Metro West, it's inside 495.
Right.
So I was just curious.
Representative Naughton did send a representative to the Mars legislative breakfast. So Northborough was represented from the House at that meeting as well, but not always part of our meetings that we have with Metro West.
Is yours Danielle?
Yeah, Danielle.
I know Carol and Danielle talk all the time,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
I
wouldn't be
would figure
surprised
them
if she
because they're
pulled them in.
Marlboro,
Yeah.
but I was thinking Harold because he's got everyone, I
He
think,
was there.
outside of 495, so.
Right. Okay, that's a good question.
And
I
that
don't think
he's
he-
got the most of Northborough, because only one precinct is Danielle.
Okay.
I
I
just
don't think
think
she'd be opposed to including
Oh,
just
yeah.
about anyone who's nearby.
Oh, I don't think she'd be opposed at all. I think it's just, you know,
Yeah, it's just.
getting on
the
calendars,
group,
yeah. Can I see a question? Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, then on to superintendent's report to the committee. Don't need to. Principal's report.
Ready?
Ready.
Thank you. So per my norm, I usually just jump excitedly right into the principal's report. I think I did that again, as I did not change the month. It says March. I don't want to go back to March. All I remember is snow. So I want to point out that typo, and then I didn't intend that. I don't want to go back to March. So speaking about academics, very excited. Our chemistry and biology Olympiad have continued their excellence, but I wanted to point out Christopher Wang and the success of having 2 years in a row doing a semi-final exam. So that's very, very exciting. It just shows the constant work that we do towards excellence. There's a blurb in there about our fine arts department. We had 4 different assemblies go to the competition. All of them brought home multiple awards. And why I'm sticking on that is one of them was all freshmen, which is unheard of to do so well. And when you get a gold, it's a lottery. So then you have to decide which of our groups can go perform at Mechanics Hall to showcase their work. All 4 of our teams were able, or groups were able to go and perform. So it was just a phenomenal event all around. The pictures are breathtaking. The students did amazing per the norm. And I just wanted to make sure that I highlighted that because the gold medal showcase really is this gold event and shows the excitement and the work that the students do. Under activities and clubs, thank you to Ms. Doyle. She did a great lead-in for the ARHS radio. I put that in here. The work that the students are doing under the guidance of Ms. Doyle and Mr. Staines, they've expanded programming and the live streaming, and I've sent this out to faculty as well so that they can disseminate it with students. We've put it up on social media. It just really highlights, one, constant connections, constant collaboration. You heard Julie talk about the work that they do in analysis and development and the literary skills, but it also just highlights the wonderful, applicable, and global skills our students have when they graduate from Algonquin. This is student-run. They have some guidance, but it's created by students, it's put out by students, and there's multiple different shows and programming. So I added that in there, and I added how you could get to the link. I just want to make sure the community was aware of that because it's very exciting work. Huge shout out to Operation Tomahawk. A lot of our groups go around, our clubs and activities go around, and they do multiple volunteer work. And what was exciting about the Operation Tomahawk work is that they've continued it. So we do a lot of work around the holidays, food drives, things of that nature. They just stopped to serve pizza on a Friday night at the Veterans. So it just showcases that great work that they do to give back to the community. And you can see that as well. Our freshmen are doing a town cleanup day, and they're continuing that giving back to the community push. Again, fostering those positive connections that I wanted to make sure that I pointed out. And little spoiler alert, because the robotics team was on their way to competition when I made this. They obviously did very well, and they won. And you guys approved for them to go on to championships. So spoiler alert, but it was a good spoiler alert, so I'm excited about that. Under athletics, a couple little quick stats updates. We have a 5% increase, so increase again in our athletics participation rate. So for spring, as snowy as it was, you can see my pictures are how creative the kids were on getting practices inside, as they did today as well. So numbers are up again. We have 22 spring athletic teams, 12 of them being varsity, and athletic council is still at it. They've continued their push to setting the bar, role model, giving back to the community. I know that they are working on a service project of athletes in motion, And this isn't in there because this is very, very new, but MIAA Coach of the Year for girls rugby was just announced, and it's our own coach, Emily Philbin. She's also an English teacher, so we were very, very excited about that. So I will sneak that in there somehow, because I have to get it down to 2 pages. Remember, I'm going to start working on that. Kudos to our history department. For the first time ever, we had an entry in the Massachusetts History Day competition, and one of our seniors, Ms. Thompson-Natta being the senior AP, Lucy Hoodart, huge gains here. Amazing work. It kind of linked to some of the Holocaust classwork, and she did a lot of the research on her own and gained high marks, which is very difficult to do, and it was the first time that we did it. So in addition to that, she scored very, very well, so that was extremely exciting. Jumping down to fine arts, we did something different this year. So along with online scheduling, which the students, of course, were way ahead of the adults and mastered that before we did and were able to select their courses, the fine arts department showcased what they do in fine arts live time for the students during course selection week, which happened to overlap Youth Art Month in music in schools. So what happened was, as you were going to the cafeteria, you'd be walking by all these different arts displays, or you'd walk by someone actually making pottery right there in the cafeteria, or playing music, or doing things live time, or singing, so that you yourself as a student knew what it meant when you went to select that art class. So it's like you could live the art, understand the art before you actually pick the course, kind of making it a safe learning environment. And we just enjoyed it, because normally the cafeteria is cafeteria, which is fun too, but it was nice to have the kids being able to perform for those couple days. It got snowed out a couple times, which is why I don't want to go back to March, but it worked out fine. In English, we had our first ever write-a-thon, which I think we came back and visited. They set up a tent. They were here. They had the greatest prompts. You got to see some of the prompts that they did, all student run. So Mr. Zarnicki was here. I think Ms. Stein swung by, and faculty members to support, and the students sat around for the night, not the entire night, but just late for me. I'm an old soul. And they devised the prompts and how to really just take writing to the next level, expand the writing center, and just add that extra element of fun. So there's a fun picture of them sitting around a pseudo campfire, right, in open flames in school, where they decorated all these, Christmas lights and really made it engaging. And students who don't feel comfortable with writing, well, you can still come to the write-a-thon and hang out with your peers. And so it's another way for you to feel connected to that writing center, and then later on get that peer-to-peer tutoring. So they continue to advance that. Applied arts, so there's some wonderful innovation there, but I wanted to make sure that I pointed out the display behind me, which I know the camera can't see, so I apologize. It just happened to work out perfectly for us. The horticulture class took on this whole challenge where they had to get specific seeds, grow them, convert them to sustainable food, get students engaged in the process, try and actually sample the food. So that's, it's wheatgrass, right? Wheatgrass. They had a bunch of healthy different shakes. Kids actually drank them. It was phenomenal. They voted on them. And then the whole process of it, though, for the competition, is they had to make a video documentary about it. So that's what they submitted in the project. So again, learning live time. Along with the science, it was cross-curricular with the video production. Fantastic work. Truly highlights the collaboration of our faculty and the amazing work of our students. Jumping down to our student supports, we had our annual inclusion coffee house. And the reason that I'm focusing on that is that what the work that Best Buddies did was that they included multiple student organizations to perform. Whatever they decided the performance was. It could be singing, it could be playing music, it could be, acting out. And it made this really fun, engaging, all-inclusive night. And anyone could go up and perform. And Mr. Hausman, per usual, did a phenomenal job on that. So I wanted to point out to that. Shout out for May 11th. It's going to be fantastic weather. I wouldn't believe me because the last time I said that it snowed. But that's when we're holding our Algonquin games. We're really excited about that. So I wanted to sneak that in there. Tomorrow, at the very end of the page, is our Junior Safe Driving Day. We've added an awesome twist on our Junior Safe Driving Day, is that our task team, and working with our guidance counselor team, linked up with our drama team, and the students created this whole new reenactment where they have the crash scene coming. They've developed all of the work that went into the scene that gets acted out that the kids hear. So it's very relevant because it came from them. It wasn't kind of just we overlaid something that we got. It's Algonquin made, Algonquin driven, great collaboration with our local PD, and it continues the work that we had on some of our previous speakers. And the timing is perfect because we have our junior prom coming, we have our senior ball coming, and we really want to just continue engaging in those positive choices and those positive connections. So that's tomorrow. Again, going to be perfect weather. Got the rain out today. Library works out perfect again. If you take a quick look around the library, some of the grant monies that we received from quarter 9, it's Poetry Month, April, and with the work with Ms. Copen's English class, this is our first ever kind of display on the different poetry and expressions that are going on. It's just a nice, inviting way to learn about poetry if it's just not something that you're used to. So it's a great experiential learning opportunity for our students. And our library, as everyone knows, is multifunctional. So now we've got more students being exposed to the awesome poetry work that's going on in our classrooms. And again, great collaboration between the library faculty members and our English department. And then I just wanted to do a quick shout out to our PE department because as muddy as it has been, they have not shied away from the curriculum and getting in those hikes. So I just had to put it out there, and I wanted to thank our parents because we know we're sending home some dirty clothes. So that's our highlights. Any questions?
Very good. I always like getting the nice color pictures and everything, so I don't mind if it's longer.
Me too. But technically it's 2 pages, see? I mean, if you only count like the 2 pieces of paper.
We never specified double-sided.
Still a work in progress for me.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. We look forward to it every single month. Okay, enrollments.
Equally exciting.
Oh, so exciting.
Tough to follow the enthusiastic summary of all that goes on at the high school. We have had some discussions about next year. You note on the bottom, there's a footnote that I use projections based on averages of percent moving from 8th grade to 9th. I think this next year, as we project, we're going to use 100% calculations because it really does at least provide more information to the towns as they're trying to calculate their budgets and then correct that as of October 1. So that came through in the budget conversations. And that is in light of the MLC conversation that we had earlier about minimum local contribution and trying to calculate that. So moving to that higher number, at least as a projected number until it sort of self-corrects with our October 1 would be helpful. So you might see that shift, and therefore, when we project in September, it's going to be a higher number than what we might be seeing now. But it will then correct as of October 1. Okay, just to change.
We're just
in
changing
that.
the projection numbers.
Just the projection numbers. And in 1 month, they'll correct
Yeah.
the actuals. Also, in your packet, we're excited about the approval of our FY19 budget, but we're still expending FY18. So in your packet, I would request a vote to approve until audited. We are being very mindful of these numbers. As you know, any remaining balance will revert to E&D. So sharpening the pencil.
I move that we accept the monthly general fund expenditure report for March 31st, 2018, until audited.
Second.
Moved by Lynn, seconded by Paul Desmond. Any questions? All those in favor? That passes unanimously.
Also in your packet, the statement of revenue, again, request a similar vote. You'll note that we are moving very closely to our 100% numbers, and just as equally so, we are tracking these numbers carefully because they do offset some of our expenditures that are not included in the operational budget. So these numbers are equally as important. Sarah noted that athletics are up, and that's very helpful on our receipts. So we'll be looking at that in May. There's still some collections before year end, so we would need a vote to approve until audited as well.
Lynn?
I move that we approve the statement of revenue as of March 31st, 2018, until audited.
Second.
Moved by Lynn, seconded by Paul Desmond. Any questions? All those in favor? That passes unanimously.
And speaking of audited, I will be sending an email, if Cheryl hasn't already sent this out, for the audit subcommittee to meet so we can review the audit materials that have been returned to us from Scanlon and Associates, with the hope that in June we'll be able to distribute this at the meeting, which is about 2 months earlier than we usually do. So we'll be done 1 year before we begin the next, so that will be coming out The budget calendar, I think,
Are we done?
a year well done,
Done.
right all the way through. And in just 3 months, we start anew. But we'll worry about that in 3 months. And also, the approved budget, voted and approved budget is in your packet with the assessments so adjusted to reflect the reissuance of the bonds, which resulted in a significant savings over the next 10 years on our debt for this facility. So that's just a distribution item. And the capital plan discussion, I do have a proposed change to this document. Through all of the inclement weather and power outages, we did realize that our phone system is as old as our building, and that does not include the renovation. It asked Michelle and Sarah the other day, are we still rebooting on a DOS computer that is in the closet, a janitor's closet, which is what I did 30 years ago when I was assistant principal. The word would go out, phone system's down, and we'd go reboot the system. And unfortunately, we're still doing that. And we also noted with all of the surges, with the power outages, that it was really time that we looked at our phone system. That is, again, part of, the networking and telecommunications and upgrading the overall safety of our school. It just so happens, given that we have one central office, we also happen to know what might be going on in another district, and what is an RFP for telecommunications. This gives us perfect timing to include with that RFP Algonquin Regional High School upgrades. Depending upon the amount of the dollars that this comes in on, the final RFP, we may be able to move this forward this year along with the project that will be taking place in Southborough. So what I'd like to suggest is that we move forward the phone system so that if it is a reality, there'll be no better time to get a cost-effective RFP than bundling it with another district's initiative. And that will make a significant difference here. So I would like to move that forward. Again, we'll be revisiting that perhaps as early as June to determine whether or not it's even feasible. But we are moving forward, hopefully, with including that in the cost. So right now, that is sitting in FY '23. It is needed. I know it's a significant move forward, but we need to do this based on what we've realized through all of the outages in the storm. And it wasn't fun to reboot on a DOS black and white monitor. It can't be much fun 30 years later.
I was just astounded that somebody thought we could wait till FY '23.
Right. So if I have a vote to do that, we can adjust this accordingly.
Someone want to make a motion? Lynn?
I move that, where did you want to move it to?
Yeah,
FY
19.
Okay.
19.
I move that we move the phone system upgrade from FY '23 to FY '19.
Second.
And keep it 75,000?
Keep it 75 right
Okay.
now until the quote comes in.
Okay, so moved by Lynn, seconded by Paul Desmond. Any other questions?
I will say that I did have conversations about the other three items that are in there, and based on the conversation, there wouldn't be a substantive impact if we move those out another year. So it's not like we're replacing something that has to be repaired next year. It would be good if we could, and certainly we would try to do all of this if we could, but let's just see what the RFP comes in.
Right.
Do we know how old the UPS is, number 8?
So we talked about that, and I think that's a secondary power source in case the main source goes down. So we are incorporating that into the RFP as well for consideration. So it may be that we can bundle that as well with the upgrades of the phone
RFP?
system. Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
Great. So we'll have an update next month on the status, and then again in June, of where we are with the bid.
Okay, old business, school start time. Well, we, after our last meeting, and there was no consensus on an absolute, plan to take. I know that you have met with the bus company, and we
I
have
have,
turned
at
our
length.
roots over to the bus company and engaged them in coming up with some innovative thinking about ideas and things to do to save minutes or change routes or whatever may may make sense. And I think, and in fact, this just happened at the Student Advisory Committee meeting. I think it's about time that we started thinking about this not as a move the bus time or move the bus route, as a, what's the bigger picture? What's the bigger problem? And we just had a great discussion with the Student Advisory Committee about their stressors and changing the schedule. And they had some great ideas and some great suggestions. And I think that conversation has already started. I know it's probably already started with teachers and the administrators. So I think we are on a good trajectory to really coming up with some innovative ideas to try to solve this problem.
Is it like kids starting some early, some later? Is it like what's?
I think everything's on the table.
Okay.
I don't think there's any, let's do this. I think, there's still information to be had from the bus company. There's still information to be had from our legislators. There's still, there's just a lot of moving parts.
Can I ask a clarifying question about the buses? So I don't know the whole kind of the start of it sounded like the buses are stopping very frequently. Is that true? Like, is there a way to shrink the amount of stops? Is that possible?
So that's been part of the conversation.
Okay.
That's not one of the things they're looking at.
And then my other question is, I know that because it's a regional, everyone automatically gets a bus, but it sounded like some kids are never, I think you had said that if you follow the bus home in your neighborhood, kids are not even getting off the bus.
They're not,
but it's still stopping.
The only problem with that is that there are going to be those times where those kids need to get off the bus.
Yeah.
Like if your parents, like my daughter Ella, Hayden goes to college next year, so it's either me or the bus.
Is there a way to have like a yearly, if a student doesn't use the bus the first, 90 days of school or 60 days of school, then that stop would get eliminated? Is there a way to kind of do that? Or I don't know how it works because it's a regional school district.
All great questions, all under consideration, already being discussed with the bus company. So there are some facts. The regional transportation reimbursement is based on certain percent of ridership, and we can't go below that.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't mean we're significantly above that. So there have been conversations about stops, consolidation, determining ridership through parking permits earlier than later, which will allow us to collect fees. So we've been having a lot of conversation about that, to develop a different mindset about how these buses are deployed, at what times they're being deployed. So I think with the notion that all of the information has been turned over to the bus company, and we no longer as a district are doing 90% of the scheduling, as historically has been for years, and to provide some additional time for us to be thinking about all of these things and actually actively engaged in the pencil sharpening and looking at these. I know over April vacation, we met for probably 4 hours before, as we've met before. I turned over all of the data to them, and they've begun, and I think I just got an email saying they were almost completed, to determine where and if we can really capitalize on all of these things that are under consideration and have been. I will just add to it that this is the perfect year for us to have the bus company start this early with the construction that's proposed in Southborough. So not only would the construction in Southborough impact our high school routes, it's going to affect all of our runs next year. So when we talk about, what next year is going to look like, we're going to be making some sort of modifications yet to be known, because the construction isn't going to take place until the start of the school year. So happy, yes, we were very much, no perfect timing.
Did you plan that?
No, my plan would have been they started it now.
I'm kidding.
We have all the routes planned. So we've always already rolled forward all of the students for next year, including our kindergarten students. And that will allow us to be tweaking schedules in Southborough for the high school and the K-8s, as opposed to building the schedules as soon as the doors are opening. So we're very pleased with that. And I think we're making some good progress. But I appreciate the input, because, we think we've thought of everything. We've been talking about this for so many years. Having the conversations continues the thought process, and that's helpful. So, yes.
I definitely think that consolidation is definitely, if I drive behind some buses, there's definitely, you know, I know that like the bus stop in our neighborhood used to be at the bottom of Breakneck and Davis. And I think it got changed because parents didn't want their kids sitting. Everyone like, you know, I mean, it's a crazy, if anyone's driven on Breakneck, it's just not a great road to drive on. That being said, it also stops at every single house that has a kid that rides the bus. So you can, you know, tweak, you know, times and stuff.
Absolutely. And that's what, yeah, exactly what we're looking at. Lynn?
I mean, I know historically on some roads, like you mentioned, Breakneck Road, and there's some in Northborough where there's like, it's windy, there's no sidewalk. You know, so, you know, that kind of makes sense that you kind of have to stop. But like, over time, there's been more sidewalks built in Northborough. Like, there used to never be, example, there used to never be a sidewalk on East Main Street. And with Tall Pines being built, part of it was the developer gave the town money so they could build sidewalks all the way through to the baseball fields into the Main Street. So that's a street that now has sidewalks, so there's no reason why you have to stop so frequently. And I don't know, maybe they've changed it already, but that's, I mean, as the towns have gotten developed, I'm sure there's other areas where sidewalks have been put in where they weren't before, or roads were widened and sidewalks put in. So it's good to, and I know they're experts that they do this all the time, the bus companies, figuring out, they have computer models, I'm sure, that optimize the routes and the stops.
And they have others looking at their routes as well. You know, it's not just completely in-house, so we
Right.
had that conversation as well. So you know, we're still moving forward with this. I think we are making some progress within the parameters that the school committee did not change, which was to continue no-cost options with minimal interruptions. And I think with some of the things we've been talking about of late, I'm optimistic.
Can I ask one more clarifying, because I didn't hear the months prior? So if all the elementaries started at that earlier time or at that same time, and the high school flipped, would there be enough buses for that whole thing to happen, or there were not? No. So you'd still have to have that 3-tier,
We actually have 4 tiers.
4-tier staggered start.
Right, because there are 2 tiers that spin off of the 3rd tier in Northborough.
Okay.
So what we're looking at is, you know, logistics. It just happened, you know, some days it's a new pair of eyes. And with the bus company in front of me for multiple hours before vacation, looked at the last tier and said, what if we combine these 2 schools and these 2 schools? So we basically have 2 elementary schools to the north of Route 20, and then we have 2 elementary schools to the south. Right now, a north and a south dismiss and arrive at the same time. And a south and a north are later schools. So to me, it was an obvious question, why don't the 2 schools north dismiss at the same time and the 2 schools south dismiss? Oh my gosh, that would be awesome, can we do that? And I said, well, we can't do it overnight because it's a change of practice for the parents, but we can factor that in, and the extended day programs, but we can factor that into the conversation. What does that do for the tiers? And can we reduce the tiers doing that? Because then the buses are just moving in the same geographical area. They're not crossing a significant roadway, which is Route 20. So that may allow us to shrink a tier and pick up some time. But that right now would be about a 35-minute swing just for those 2 elementary schools, but a manageable change. So they were ecstatic and said, and again, that's just been the way it was.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, we're having all the conversations that I think would lead us to any potential change to fit into, again, revisiting whether this is feasible at no cost. So we did revisit the calculations again, and we will be doing that once more. But all of that, shrinking the number of minimizing the bus stops, collaborating and consolidating that 4th tier. But all of the buses cannot run to all of our elementary schools at one time.
once.
They just can't make it. And as it is, we are always late on our published times in terms of drop-off. So the morning isn't too bad, but the end of the day is significant. Traffic picks up the highways. And we cross Route 9 and Route 20 frequently in some of our routes, even though we try not to. So good conversation, good works, going on, and we continue the challenge and the opportunity to see what we can do to embrace the change.
Has it been decided, like, what the time difference is we're shooting for? I know that one was like 15 minutes, and then another was to go the whole hour difference.
Well, at this juncture, I think we're just trying to find out how many minutes, if it's possible, could we save by tweaking bus routes? Like, there's no mandate, find 20 minutes, because that changes the whole process, right? So I think right now they're just, they're just given carte blanche as, be as creative as you can be, because you guys are the experts and you know what you're doing. And, you tell us what you think the most feasible. I mean, because it's also got to be feasible, and it also can't, we can't add another bus, or we can't add another 2 buses, because that turns into real money real fast.
So it's 2 different conversations, shrinking the bus routes and the bus time, and also changing the start times of school. It's 2 separate. No, start time is going to stay. Just, they won't pick the, I'm sorry, say that again?
They're not separate conversations.
They're the same.
Yeah, one is definitely being driven by the, each
By
is
the
being
other.
driven
Got
by
it.
by the other, yeah.
But there is a third variable, and that is the continued desire to do something very innovative and very different with our schedule here at the high school and the way we approach a school day. I think that is the overriding outcome of the conversation that we had at school committee last time. That, and I think, Paul, you also had some comments on that, that if what we need to do is really look at innovative change, then that's what we should be looking at. And that's what we're doing as well. So the other conversation that's going on is the one that really needs to take place in-house with the teachers. We just heard it from the students again about an alternative day and what would that look like. And so those conversations are going on simultaneously within the high school construct, to have those conversations with teachers and, with students, to see what an improved overall educational experience would be for our students. We just talked about Canvas. That's a whole opening of educational opportunities and learning environments for students. So how can that be factored into the innovative school? Earlier in the legislative discussions, we talked about innovative schools. We've written innovative schools grants. And so this is not uncommon for us to be thinking this way. And so we have some models that we'd like to propose, and with that will be substantive change beyond just the change of school day. And that's who we are as a district.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we were talking last time, we kind of came to this conclusion, some of the testimony that, 5 or 10 or 20 minutes, 20 minutes might be great if we could achieve it, but, is there something even more that, that can address the overall stress? And Kathleen had referenced the student advisory committee meeting that we had, and one of the things that was interesting, apart from when the school starts, is that just not having a lot of break time in between classes to kind of decompress, because even at lunch, it's very, they don't barely have time. So when I went to school, we had lunch, it was a break. You got to, talk to your friends and everything, and, apparently, and even with my kids going through the school, that's just, if you are getting the lunch from the counter and not bringing your own lunch, you're in line and you get back and you might have time to eat, or maybe not. So, that, all that stuff going on within the school day really speaks to, we got to think about something else, and school start time is like one aspect of it, but it's also, what are we doing to uncram the day so the kids get a chance to kind of absorb what they're learning, so.
Well said. Any other questions? Okay, then moving on to policy development.
The good news is that all these policies are first read, so that we have time. I think the goal was to vote some of these at our June meeting, so that we would be starting the school year with them. The discussion was also to bring the religious observance policy back to each of the committees for comments, and that we would be bringing it back in June with every committee's comments together for hopeful approval. So that's contained with the edits that were reviewed on tape by Cheryl Lepre at least 30 times. I think she said that in the policy subcommittee meeting. So, and then she asked Elaine to sit there too and go through it. So they tried to pull the language off that Kathy Key used during that discussion.
I think we
have it at this point. And then the other policies are, policies that have come before, and we created them, and they're back with minor revisions that were submitted by the Health and Wellness Group, and then the subcommittees as well. I will say that we had an interesting conversation at the Southborough School Committee meeting, specifically when these policies were brought forward, about our sort of designation as a district. And even though the language is the same, whether we should be making sure that each time we issue the policy for the respective school district, we refer to it as a single district, so that while the policy language may not change, it would be issued as the Southborough School Committee, the Public Schools of Southborough, and then we would reissue it as the Public Schools of Northborough and the Northborough-Southborough Regional School Committee. So that's up for conversation, and I think we discussed the fact that we would bring that topic forward to each of the committee just for some input. Because the Public Schools of Northborough and Southborough are in fact two different entities that we're combining in one designation, but are very singular in their ability to create policy for their school community.
So is it basically that, do you want to designate which policies are combined, determined policies? Or, like, is there an overarching reason for doing that with some of the policies? Or do you want to change, or do you want to know if we want to change every policy to read the public schools of Northborough-Southborough?
So I think the policies that really are referred to as the public schools of Northborough and Southborough are the ones that either were just newly authored because they were mandated language. I think what the goal was, originally the goal was to come together as a combined one entity unit, but as 3 school committees, so that we could discuss and share the language that was required for the policy. So having the language the same is really the benefit. Mm-hmm. So whether we call it the Public Schools of Northborough and Southborough, or we have each policy with its identified policy number move forward uniquely as Southborough, Northborough-Southborough Regional School District, is really just naming the district. As long as the language is the same, I think that's important. The fact that we came together combined to write it is really what was important in the process, so that the language was consistent. And, the essence of that work 3 years ago or 4 years ago when it started was the benefit of all committee members to hear thoughts and to share ideas around new policies that were being created. So that's really a decision of the school committees. One could support the notion that the public schools of Northborough and Southborough is not a single entity, but rather saying the public schools of Northborough and the public schools of Southborough agree to this policy language. Mm-hmm. So it's really just how we want this represented. This is going to council as a question as well, so that they give us sort of the legal language, given the fact that we are 3 entities. Mm-hmm. And this is how we refer to ourselves, because we are complex. Mm-hmm. Right.
So, go ahead. So I thought we had this conversation in one of our policy meetings.
We had it at the Southborough School Committee meeting as well.
But I think that part of the confusing piece of some of the policies is that I think their numbers should be very similar, because some of them aren't.
Right.
So some are, I don't know, I can't read without my glasses, sorry, like E or A or whatever. Like, so if you looked at the book, they're all different. So I think as a combined, we're just trying to make it, I think we discussed leaving it as the same, the school district, but just having the numbers be similar so it's easier to reference.
So the numbers are similar if the number hasn't already existed in a district already. So, for example, E210 may have been used already in the other school district. And I agree, if for the most part, when we've created new policies, we've created a new number, which is the same number represented in all three. But in some cases, one district may have moved forward on a similar policy before other districts. So there was already a number that was used. So that number in that district would have to change, and the number that we created for the policy in common would have to be used. So we would either be changing a policy number in one district because they already had the policy, because two of the districts already adopted a new policy number. So it gets a little confusing. The good news is wherever we've made a new policy, because it's been a mandate, like the Bill 222 language, the restraint, physical restraint training, the policy that we need for the opioid bill, those have been unique new numbers that we've been able to create. If we revise the policy and made the language consistent, in some of those cases, there was already a policy with that name and a different number in place. So what we did was we made the language consistent, but we couldn't change the number because it already existed.
Okay.
Yeah. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does. At some point, like, does it make sense though, just to?
Wipe them all out, start the numbering
Yeah.
the same? Yes.
Absolutely.
That's a summer project. That's it. We renamed all the policies. It's this title, it's this number.
Right, I
Yeah.
just to make it. easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's easy to. So I just have a question. How many other, are there any policies that are only in one district but not another?
Yes, the high school has
Has
a lot of policy because of the grade span and because of the requirements by law. We have a chart, and that would be an interesting chart to bring forward. It's what we use when we say this is up for renewal or revision. And so you can see on that chart, we tend to
Yeah, I
reference
saw
that. So
yeah.
that's a good example of those policies that already have a number in place. And you can't change it unless we go through the whole renumbering, which we can do, and those that we are creating a new number for. And anytime we have a new policy that doesn't have the name of that policy and a number assigned to it, we make it consistent. So we can see all the progress we've made on the chart, and we've made significant progress in that direction, trying to have that consistency of numbering.
So does the K to 8s, do they have?
Well, that's not snow.
I'm glad I'm not.
Those would be
going
heavy
out there
snowflakes,
yet.
and a lot of it.
So, and it's the middle of the week.
Yeah.
It's the same pattern. What was it like? So this rain. So are there any of the K to 8s, the two Northborough and Southborough, does one of those, any one of those have a policy that the other doesn't have yet? Okay. So
But not a lot. We're really getting close to having great parity.
Okay. So I know we had that chart, but I just hadn't looked at it close enough yet.
We've rescinded a lot in both districts, simply because there were policies from the 1970s. There were
We
some
may have to
interesting
do
policies.
something
Yeah.
again.
Right.
Bring one back in more modern language.
So we're trying to get closer and closer. You know, the policies have been in place for quite some time, and I think, we've made significant progress over time to bring the language similar where it needed to be and where there was a will of the committees to make that happen. And with all of the new policies that we've been asked to create, we've had consistency of numbering and language. So we've made a lot of progress. And we're close now to starting our second cycle of revision, which is about a 5-year review. So, a lot of great work by the subcommittee and the school committees.
All right, any other questions? Okay, audience sharing. Lynn?
I have an audience sharing. I just had time. I ate dinner before this meeting, and I was catching up on my community advocate, and I thought I would be Joan. And there was an article about graduate, Chaney Moreland, from Southborough, 2012 graduate. She had created in her sophomore year at Belmont University in Nashville, this platform called Even More, and it's event venues, artists, and more. What she and her friend that she met down there discovered is that there was no way to kind of match the artist with someone who wants to plan an event. And so they have put together this digital platform which automates the booking process for live musical events, usually at college festivals, any other types of festivals, community festivals, private events. And what it is someone who wants to have this event will put in their criteria, the pricing, type of music, whatever, and then the artists that have registered with this platform, if they match up, they will be notified of this event, the date and everything. But they also vet the artists.
Wow.
To make sure that they're a high quality. She actually went down to school there for songwriting, and she thought that she would be in the performance end, but she found herself doing this. She's graduated and has this company now with her friend Mackenzie Stokel, who she met down there. And I just wanted to give a shout out congratulations to Channing and wishing her good luck with her company. And also, it also speaks to all of our K-8 high school music programs, because she first, started at a young age with violin and continued all the way up through Algonquin. And, a lot of districts, when money is tight, that's one of the areas that gets lost, or, sometimes things changing. Some programs, aren't as, even though they might offer it, they're not as well attended. And so I think it speaks well of our music education program, that it attracts the students and really brings out the potential and the possibility. And so I think I want to congratulate our music departments throughout the K-8, K-12 curriculum as well. And, you never know. You might not be a performer, but you're in the music area itself. So
It underlines the importance of educating the whole child.
exactly.
Audience sharing? There being none?
Nope. Oh, she has one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but Terry was in your way.
Hi, I'm Michelle Brownlee. I'm the chapter leader of Northborough-Southborough Start School Later, and I just wanted to thank you all for your continued attention to the issue. I came here sort of prepared to pour my heart out about how I really want you to pay attention to the issue, but I know you're doing it, and I'm really happy to hear it. So thank you, and keep up the good work, and let us know if we can be of any support as you tackle this very difficult issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other audience sharing?
I wanted to echo that too. My name's Jen. I'm from Southborough. I had a question actually. I'm wondering, when you say larger picture, what this is about start times, what kind of things were mentioned or ideas that students came up with? And then my second point is, you have a great website with some information about the start time issues. I don't see a huge amount updated more recently, so it would be great in terms of keeping us informed and letting us know as parents how we can become involved and help with the process, if we can see some of, because I think, like I said, hearing all of the things that you've been talking about has been really helpful to me, and it would be great to see that somewhere where we can kind of check in. So those are just my 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. You look like you want to say something.
No, I think points well taken. You can
Points well
certainly include that on an update in the website.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay. There being none, move on to personnel.
Well, I think we need a roadmap for this one. Basically, no one's leaving us, even though it looks like they are. They either moved from, leave of absence to appointment, or from resignation to position, or from a resignation to appointment. So, as Julie pointed out, she's with us. She is no longer taking she has a leave of absence from her instructional position for next year. Brian Callanan, likewise from math, but moving up to the instructional technology specialist. So we're all just shifting a little bit to a higher level of opportunity in providing excellence in a different way for our students and staff. So thank you to all of these people who continue to stay engaged in the work that we do here each and every day.
Wearing different hats.
Wearing different hats. Maybe shoes, too.
All right.
That was scary, by the way.
What?
The leave of absence for Julie Doyle. I found that very frightening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was like a little concerned. I was
Yeah.
like,
You kind of have to have a couple of the personnel reports at the same time.
I think that's a great thing that we do here in the district, and we always has. It's just opening up opportunities for great professional staff members and educators to challenge themselves. And as they build their level of excellence in other areas, they're still giving back to our district in different ways. And they have a safety net, and that's what that is about. And we've always appreciated that that mobility, and we encourage their professional growth. I think many of us were provided that opportunity, myself included, 25 years ago, when I went from the classroom to administration, and it's always a wonderful thing to have. And it also keeps them here in one way or another, so.
Yes. All right, on to communications on the desktop.
An update on the commissioner, who I think will be in Worcester County at our Worcester County Roundtable this week, sharing his thoughts. And the International Night, this is our second annual. If there wasn't an opportunity to attend last year, this is something you don't want to miss. It is a high-energy, multi-international, multifaceted event with students and parents and grandparents. And thank you to RotaWeb for taking this on and developing this last year and continuing the effort along with a lot of dedicated staff, including, I think, everyone who was an English language learner teacher last year attended. So it's a great night, and we're looking forward to it. This Friday.
This Friday, yes. Okay, approval of bills and payrolls. I'm sure there are many. And agenda items for next month, we have election of officers and school choice public hearing and vote.
Yes. Update on the RFP, perhaps, and the budget discussion. Phone. And next month, we also will be reviewing proposals, I hope, for increased fees that we talked about for facilities use.
Oh,
we're developing that, so that'll be in the budget section of the agenda.
Okay.
Handbook again.
Oh, yes, handbook again.
Science? Craig, what's about
The science department will be presenting.
I think you're the only one that knows that, Nick. So I think
Amy
sharing
welcomes
that.
the challenge.
Okay.
And
Just presented
and the
last
only
year.
reason I know that is because I had a meeting
With them?
with department chair Lori Zanini, who said
Okay.
she will be presenting next.
They presented
Next school
last year. I
camp.
think they presented last year.
It's
I
2
would
years.
not know Superintendent Johnson.
That's
No.
right.
But I look forward to the
It doesn't
presentation
matter because
next
she's
month.
coming here in May, which is always
Should
exciting.
have been quiet.
All right.
Is that a little note, science?
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
second.
Well, she got in. Okay, moved by Paul Desmond, seconded by Kathy Key. Any discussion? All those in favor? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.